would like to call the meeting of the Board of Directors of the Des Moines Public Schools to order on June 5th, 2018. Please take the roll.
Natasha Newcomb.
Here.
Ms. Della Gardell Shelley.
Here.
Ms. Langford.
Here.
Ms. Caldwell Johnson.
Here.
Ms. Ellsburn.
Here.
Ms. Anderson. Here. Mr. Barron.
Here.
The first item on our agenda this evening is approval of the agenda. Are there any special requests to pull items? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the agenda.
I'll move approval. Second.
Motion by Ellsburn and a second by Anderson. Please vote. Motion carries 7-0. The next item on our agenda is approval of the minutes. May I have a motion and a second to approve the May 9th and May 15th, 2018 minutes?
So moved. I hit the wrong button.
Second.
I'm sorry.
We have a motion from De La Gardell Shelley and a second from Barron. Any discussion or corrections? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 7-0. Before continuing with our regular meeting, I want to remind the audience that we allow any person the opportunity to speak to the board for 5 minutes following the presentation of an agenda item. If anyone wishes to speak to an agenda item, please go to the information table to sign up. Remarks must be germane to the agenda, and we ask that you avoid reference to personalities and character attacks, as those types of comments serve no productive purpose. As a reminder to the board in public, the board will not engage in discussion or deliberation with the speaker regarding comments made to agenda items. Discussion and deliberation will remain among the board members at the board table, with speakers' comments informing said discussion, deliberation, and determination as deemed necessary. We appreciate your input. Ms. Ellsburn, I believe you have the consent motion.
I do. I move that the board approve the consent items in accordance with the recommended action for each item on the consent agenda, including bills previously authorized, certified, and approved for payment by the board secretary in the amount of $7,019,300.94.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion from Ellsburn and a second from Anderson to approve the consent items. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 7-0. The next item on our agenda is a public hearing. I'll call the public hearing to order on item number E1, property purchase north of Greenwood School. Is there anyone wishing to speak to this item? Anyone wishing to speak to this item? Hearing no one, we'll close the public hearing, and I'll ask the superintendent to please introduce the matter.
I recommend the board approve the purchase of property from Wesley Development Services, LLC, in the amount of $205,000 following the public hearing. The 17,361 square foot property is located north of Greenwood Elementary School.
May I have a motion and a second to approve the property purchase at Greenwood?
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion from Barron and a second from Ellsburn. Any questions or comments?
Glad it's happening.
Yes, I would just like to thank Bill Good and the superintendent and everyone who, oh goodness,
Be nice to quit talking about this.
much longer
Yes.
than was absolutely necessary to get this done, but we appreciate your due diligence. Anything else before we move to the vote? Please vote on the motion. Motion passes 7-0. The next item on our agenda is also a public hearing. I'll call the public hearing to order on item E2, parking and student pickup drive at Greenwood School. Is there anyone wishing to speak to this item? Anyone wishing to speak to this item? Hearing no one, we'll close the public hearing, and I'll ask the superintendent to again introduce the matter.
I recommend the board review and approve the proposed plans and specifications prepared by Bishop Engineering for a parking lot addition and a student pickup drive with parking at Greenwood Elementary School following the public hearing.
May I have a motion and a second to approve the plans for the parking and student pickup drive at Greenwood School?
I move. So moved. Second.
We have a motion from Langford, a second from De La Gardell Shelley. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, please vote. Motion passes 7-0. The next item on our agenda is item number F1, open enrollment late applications for denial. I'll ask the superintendent to please introduce the item.
Yes, we have 6 cases for you tonight. These are open enrollment applications that were submitted untimely. There is an allowance in state code for a late submission for open enrollment under certain conditions where they're allowed to go through a late application process. We follow the rejection based on state code. So those on your agenda tonight are those that do not meet the exception standard. I would also just offer that if you'll note of those 6 cases, 4 of those are for Clayton Ridge or CAM, which are the 2 state-approved online academies. And we, at least at the high school level, we can fully meet with higher quality that same desire for a virtual education.
Thank you, Dr. Ahart. Are there any speakers that wish to speak to the open enrollment late applications for denial? Hearing no one, I would entertain a motion and a second to deny the late applications for open enrollment identified by case number in the agenda based on district policy and state code.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Ellsburn and a second from Barron. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Hearing none, we have a motion and a second to deny the late applications. Please vote. Motion carries 6 yes, 1 no. The next item on our agenda is item number F2, open enrollment appeals for denial. Dr. Ahart, would you please introduce the matter?
Yes, when timely submissions for open enrollment are submitted and denied, there's an avenue for appealing that decision. Each of those cases is reviewed, and the items on your agenda tonight are those that did not meet the standard for approval after the appeal process. And again, I would just note that 3 of those applications are for the online academies at either CAM or Clayton Ridge.
Thank you. We do have two speakers signed in advance of the meeting for this item. The first speaker is Tammy Only. If you could please come to the podium and state your name, address, and city for the record.
My name is Tammy Onley. My address is 1149 13th Street, Des Moines 50314. And if I may, I have something for, I guess, every other person. You guys can share if that's...
Just share here and we'll pass them around. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for allowing me to speak today on my son's behalf. There's nothing wrong with Des Moines Public Schools. I have a 21-year-old who got an excellent education with Des Moines Public Schools and is at ISU currently. So thank you for helping him with his foundation of education. My life changed drastically in January. My son, Noah, I'm a single parent, and he suffered a seizure. And he has sickle cell trait. So when he was born, I really didn't know anything about sickle cell. Learned very quickly, it's kind of child by child basis. We struggled with immunity that was very compromised. But we always overcame, take more probiotics, whatever. So anyway, come January, I had applied for Cowell's Montessori School. I really liked that approach with the education. And he got denied due to the classroom size. They didn't have availability. And that was earlier. What happened in January kind of changed everything for me. So I knew the route I needed to take at that point, which was to enroll him in West Des Moines. I spoke with Dana Jarvis and Peggy Epstein, and they did have availability if Des Moines was able to release him. I've worked at the same place in West Des Moines for 17 years. I work in quality assurance, and the idea of not being able to reach my son, if this were to happen again, that was the worst 5 minutes of my life with his seizure and him being taken in the ambulance. to blank, and then him not coming to for several hours after that. Just thinking about it rips my heart out. Like I said, I'm a single parent. I have limited resources, but the resources that I do have are close to West Des Moines. So it's not that I don't know the awesome education he would get at Des Moines. It's just for me, that's the availability that I have to be able to before school program and then possibly a little after school. I do plan on moving to West Des Moines in a couple of years. So I guess I'm just prayerfully asking that he can start kindergarten and continue at West Des Moines, and me have the peace of mind every day knowing if it did happen, again, that I could get to him quickly. And there's 2 hospitals, Methodist and Mercy, right there, very close by. So my son, as you can see, he's not a number. That's my baby. And it's just me. His father walked out. So I need to do everything I can. And I request as a mother, if you guys are parents, just put yourself in my shoes. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for being here this evening.
Yes.
The next speaker I have for the open enrollment appeals for denial is Kathleen and Rebecca Meldy. Sorry. State your name, address, and city for the record.
I'm Kathleen Meldy. This is my daughter Rebecca. We are at 200 Tonawanda Drive in Des Moines.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It's kind of a long name and stuff. The reason we wanted to speak was just to explain why we were asking for the open enrollment. You've seen, I assume, all of the paperwork that we sent in and all the reports from the psychologist. I have an antsy young lady who needs to get up. She needs to move around. That doesn't work well in a public school, in any school setting. I'm very nervous, sorry.
Okay, no reason to be nervous. We don't bite.
It's just our life on the lines. You've seen her grades, I'm sure. They're not good. Her attendance is not good. I don't want you to think that I'm a parent or my husband is a parent, that we don't know these things are happening, but the anxiety that is suffered, the phone calls I get from the hallway that she's nervous, she's scared, she's having a panic attack, what is she gonna do, it's hard for me. We do have a plan. We did our goal is to open enroll her to the Iowa Connections Academy online. She'll go to a tutoring center where she'll be supervised, but she'll be in a room by herself. She can get up, she can move around, she can do what she needs to, get her education, and do that there. If she needs help, there's tutors. That's where she gets her dyslexia tutoring done. She has a 504 now with the school that's not being followed, so we've been having a lot of back and forth issues there and aren't getting the help that she needs there, and I need to leave time for her to talk.
So I go to Roosevelt High School. I'm a junior, incoming senior. When I go to school every day, I wake up in the morning not knowing if I want to go to school or if I'm going to get help when I go to school. Last year, my first block, I had a really reliable teacher that would help me and definitely be there for me if I had any questions or if I needed something to wake me up or if I needed to move around and go different places. My second class, I was sexually harassed in and asked to be removed from that class. A couple months later, then was removed after everything went down. They asked if I wanted to create a lawsuit, didn't want to. Then following next semester, the same situation went down, asked to be taken out of the class, ended up failing it because nobody listened to me and what I had to say about I needed to be dropped. So I have an F on my record from now on. When I am in class and I ask questions, I don't get answers. I just get stupid looks and asked if I'm like stupid, and that gives me anxiety to go to class. Most teachers say if I'm late or gone a day, they say come in and I'll help you. I come in, they give me the work, they tell me what I need to do, very short and sweet, and I leave, and they don't really hear anything from me because I don't want to ask them because that's all they gave me. My mom gets calls because I'm not in school, I'm not in class, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that, because if I go to that class or I'm in that class, I get picked on, I get yelled at by teachers. I don't get the help I needed. Usually if I ask people around me, they don't usually know because they're not listening. If I ask the teachers, they immediately go, oh, don't ask me, ask one of your friends or something in the classroom. And I say, they don't know either, but the teachers don't listen to me and they don't listen to my mom. And so I just need somebody to actually listen to me for once, because it's my education and it's my life, and I can't help myself through school. I need teachers to help me, and where I'm at right now is not a good place to excel in my learning. And if I were to go to Iowa Connection Academy, I would be in a safe place to be able to ask random questions and stupid questions, as people call them, and not feel scared to ask them. Also, my attendance, you guys probably see that I've been gone or absent in classes maybe 100 days throughout the whole school year, and that is because I get picked on when I go to class, I get yelled at, I get harassed, I get touched inappropriately, whatever, and I just don't feel obligated to go to class, so I don't. And I tell my mom, and she's like, what is the school board gonna think when they see all of your absences and stuff? And I'm like, I don't really care. They need to see that I don't go to class because of these reasons, and so they need to understand that I need to be placed somewhere else. Yeah.
She's a teenager. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Are there any other speakers? Those are the only ones that I have listed. Okay. May I have a motion and a second to deny the open enrollment appeals identified by case number in the agenda based on Iowa Code and district policy?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion from Ellsburn and a second from Barron. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Eleanor, is Eleanor here? Yeah, awesome. Okay. So I guess I just want to reemphasize for families that Eleanor is always available to help them discuss other options within our district. So
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Hearing none. Anybody? Please vote. Motion passes 6-1. The open enrollment appeals have been denied. The open enrollment process by which parents or guardians residing in the Iowa district may enroll their students into another school district under the terms and conditions of Iowa Code Section 282.18 and 281, Iowa Administrative Code Chapter 17. Decisions for students requesting to leave the Des Moines Public Schools are processed in accordance to the district's state-approved diversity plan. The actions of this board this evening regarding open enrollment reflect our requirement under state law and those of our diversity plan. Even though your request for open enrollment has been denied, there are multiple ways your student's education can still be fulfilled by the Des Moines School District. Eleanor Shirley, who's here in the front row, I would direct both families to Eleanor to hopefully discuss other options, many of which were articulated in the packet and information that the board members received relative to communication that all families have received as it relates to options within our district to accommodate your student. So I would definitely direct you to Eleanor, and hopefully we can get this resolved. Thank you for being here. All right, the next item on our agenda this evening is item number F3, Board Governance Policy Revisions. This is an item submitted by the board, and I will ask for any comments, any additional questions before we move forward. All of these are items that were discussed in a work session a couple of weeks ago. So if there are questions, this would be the time to raise those. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion and a second to approve the changes in board policy.
I just wanted to comment and just say that the board has been working very diligently on policies since I first joined the board, and I just want to thank my board colleagues for the work that they have done in both educating me and also in updating our policies on some important things that really kind of reflect the way we've been going about the work, and then now the policy reflects that, and I think we still have some good work left to go, but I think we're going to finish this work shortly within the next few months, hopefully, so thank you.
Just as an aside for the public, there are several changes to multiple board governance policies, and if anyone is interested, I would encourage you to go to the district website, to the board meeting agenda, and if you pull that up, there is a tab that you can click on when it gets to policy, and it will show you the current policy and the proposed revisions that the board will be voting on this evening. So I would answer any additional questions and also echo Ms. De La Gardelle Shelley's comments relative to the work that we've put in, and in particular, a big thanks to my board colleague, Cindy Ellsburn, for her work on these policies. I would entertain a motion and a second to approve.
I move approval.
I'll second.
We have a motion from Barron and a second from Langford. Any further discussion? Hearing none, please vote. Motion carries 7-0. We have several items in our packet that are information only. The first is the Head Start Policy Committee minutes, April 2018, as well as the annual report.
Terry,
Yes.
if I could make a comment just for the board on that. The annual report is from the Drake University Head Start. It does reflect the grant, the Head Start grant that they received, and then the dollars that Des Moines Schools receives as a grantee. Of note would be that our contractual, you'll find on page 4, our contractual, their contractual obligation to us as a DMPS delegate is $1,674,736 out of a $5.6+ million budget. While we serve, I can't remember where that is. On the report, I had that. Sorry.
It's okay.
I had it marked, and I wanted to make sure it. We provide services for 454 Head Start children, while Drake University provides services for 384 Head Start children. Just wanted to kind of point out some of those numbers and the reflect the balance that we definitely serve more children for less money.
Significantly less money. Okay, thank you for that. And just another really quick comment. So Cindy has served as our representative to both Polk County Early Childhood Iowa as well as Head Start. And her term actually concludes at the end of June. Yep, at the end of June. And so I've asked Rob Barron if he would consider moving into that role. Their board has to vote on individuals whose names have been advanced. And so we have advanced Rob's name for their consideration as our representative, and we'll definitely keep our fingers crossed that he will be accepted, and if so, he'll move into that role. Just another really quick thing, those board meetings are scheduled either at 7:30 in the morning or 11 o'clock during the daytime. And so trying to identify someone who had the availability during that time really sort of limited our ability to identify individuals. And so I reached out to Mr. Barron, and he was gracious enough to agree, and we certainly hope that they'll approve his nomination, and we can move forward with our representation.
Right, and I would just add to that that they do also require a certain, or look for a certain gender balance as well.
Correct.
Thank you. Rob.
Thank you.
Just to clarify. Yeah, sorry.
As opposed to the Des Moines School Board.
As opposed to the Des Moines School Board, right.
Well, unfortunately, we can't dictate that
ma'am.
balance, so.
No, ma'am.
At any rate. But I'm sure you'd be more than happy to have a few more men up here.
Actually, I kind of like it the way it is.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Great. So moving on to items of privilege, I did want to take just a moment to speak to the public forum comments that were shared, and I would certainly encourage other board members as well. There was a specific request of us to calendar an item on our agenda to take a pulse of the board, and I'm hoping that by virtue of individual board comments this evening, the public will get a sense of where individual board members are on the issue of bell times. So I want to just take a few moments to address the topic. The bell times are scheduled to go into effect at the beginning of the next school year, 2018-19. And many of the points that I'm going to make this evening are similar to ones that I made previously, but I believe that they bear repeating in light of the concerns that were articulated by our speakers this evening. So I want to be really, really clear, and since I guess the board was really challenged to step up and indicate where they are on this issue, I'll be the first to say that I support the board's decision to not only delegate to the superintendent the authority to decide school hours for the district, but further, I support the proposed changes recommended by the superintendent. And unless directed by a majority of this board, I have no intention of putting the issue of delegation of the authority on discussion of the school board agenda, nor do I have the desire to move forward with putting the item on the agenda for a discussion of the school hours in general. In just a few short days, 79 to be specific, we will be moving into the new hours. For an organization that's comprised of nearly 33,000 students and 5,000 employees and more than 60 locations, it's much larger than being able to just turn on a dime, and we have to recognize the expense, the time, and the attention that's already been placed on this issue. As a board, we vest a great deal of responsibility for the day-to-day operations in our superintendent, and among those responsibilities are school buildings and their hours of operation. As we discussed last year when this item was deliberated not only once but twice, and we have repeated several times since then, this was an appropriate decision to delegate to our superintendent, given our current governance policies, and quite frankly, I believe that our superintendent has not only based his decision on analysis, but also surveying, coordination with our many partners, and extensive dialogue between the staff and not only our district investors, but also our many community stakeholders. I appreciate everyone who attends all of our meetings, and in particular, I appreciate it when people share their views and opinions that may be different than the one that I hold. But I do believe that the forum exists for people to be able to share those opinions, and obviously it provides an opportunity for the board to get the level and kind of feedback that we need from our constituents. However, from this point forward, our priority must be the result of this change and whether the reasons for the change match the reality of its implementation. It is now time for us to discuss and focus on the development of a plan and a set of measurable indicators required to monitor whether issues ranging from academics to behavior and attendance are improving or not, and what factor the new school hours are playing, and what we can and must do to address outcomes and/or trend lines that are not consistent with the highest levels of success and achievement for all of this district's K-12 students. So I've put my stake in the sand. I am not turning back. I'm supporting the decision of our superintendent, and I would challenge the rest of my board colleagues to please step up and share where they are on the issue.
I can go.
I don't have remarks prepared, so I'm gonna try to speak from the top of my brain, but also be concise and clear. Dr. Ahart, when you and your administration first came to us with the proposal to look at start times, this is something that I wanted to be excited about, and this is something I really want to genuinely support, because I was definitely one of those students who was falling asleep. And to be clear, when we proposed this, this was for, the research also supports that our secondary students are in need of more sleep, and currently they're not getting the sleep that they need based on their sleep cycles. And so being the kid that was always late to my first period class And being the kid that was always falling asleep in my sixth period class, I really, really want to be able to support this. But as a mentor once told me, in terms of how they vote in difficult decisions, they said they have to be able to sleep at night and feel good about, you know, the vote that they're taking. And so, you know, recognizing that there was a lot of work put into this, I think that sometimes, I think that I have concerns about our poorest families in this district. And I have concerns about whether they're going to be, if we have enough information to make sure that they're going to be okay. And, you know, we've talked about in this board role that oftentimes, you know, you have conflicting agendas. You represent multiple groups. You're going to represent students and staff and community members and then the district itself. And sometimes those don't all, we've talked about this several times behind closed doors, they don't always conflict, or they don't always align. But I don't feel that we've done our due diligence as a board and recognize there's a lot. I know there was a lot of work that was done, but I also know my community. And I know for whatever reason, I know we have a lot of folks who don't have internet access. I know we have a lot of folks, for whatever reason, there's probably a place for us to have a conversation around accountability within our own communities as well. But I feel like part of my role is to be responsive to what people are telling me. And as I told you on the phone, you know, my worry is for our single moms in the district. My worry is for our poorest families. And do we even know how they're going to be impacted by this change? And I don't think we have enough information to confidently move forward and know that this is going to be a positive move for most of our kids, recognizing that we can't get it, you know, perfect for all 32,000. Nobody's going to be, you can't please everyone in this situation, but I don't feel good that we've done everything that we can to really learn about how this change could impact our poorest families. And I want to support this, but I think there's more that we could do. I think there's more that we could do. And I just don't feel good about that, and I can't support it for where it is right now. But I recognize that as a board, I also recognize that, you know, all my colleagues up here, I have the utmost respect for them. And I think that they really do care about kids. But we disagree on this issue. I don't feel good about it moving forward. And, but I recognize my role is a board member, you know, the majority vote rules. And so as an individual board member, you know, I will support the vote of the board, but I don't agree with it. And I don't think it's right.
Just kind of echoing a bit what Deanna said. Going through this process, we've been working on this for a really long time. And first I should address my vote for the delegation. I think that was a mistake of mine. I believe the board moved forward as though we were going to take that vote. However, we're still always held accountable to what happens for our district, but that's something that I probably would take back. But also, I believe that, you know, bell time change is going to scare just about everyone when you start messing with schedules. So I do believe that we're always going to have that tension. However, in this particular situation, I do have the concern that Deanna has with our most vulnerable families and students. It's great that they're coming out and some are speaking with us, and then there's, of course, the silent ones that haven't had that opportunity. I think if it's something we really believe in, we could delay implementation and make sure that it is a successful program for our families and for the district. So overall, yes, bell time change, we can do better, but I think at this time for our elementary students, we should revisit that early start.
Mr. Barron.
Well, I'm going to agree and disagree with certain things that have been said so far. First of all, I'm going to make it absolutely clear, and I think I made it clear the evening that we voted to delegate setting bell times to the superintendent that I supported this proposal, and I still support this proposal. I still think this is the best thing for our district, and from my role on this board, a role that I take very seriously, I think we're doing the best thing overall. It's not perfect. Not a single thing of consequence that we can do in this district, and certainly not a single thing that we can do this large is going to be perfect. And that's really kind of where my thoughts are. So you all know where I stand on this. I think that there's a second order consideration to all of this that we as a board have to take into account. We're an ambitious group of 7 folks, and the superintendent leads a fairly ambitious team of administrators, and I think our workforce shares in that ambition, and that is to for the working folks to come in every day and try and do huge things on behalf of kids, and for us it's to take time away from our families and all the other priorities in our lives to set policy and try and move the needle for a district that with a big group of kids that looks like a lot of the kids that haven't been served in recent years. And this is a big thing, what we are considering right now. And it has a lot of repercussions, like Natasha said. I have concerns too, but I am comfortable with the process that we went through. But more than that, I am worried that we as a board, if we were to walk back from this position, I think you said 79 days from the start of school, we hinder our ability to do big things for a long time to come, because we really put trust into this process. This idea that folks have not been listening to the community, I get it. I mean, folks, we haven't heard from everybody, and we haven't heard from as many as we would want to hear from, but I don't think it's for a lack of effort on behalf of the district. There were multiple surveys, multiple plans, meetings done in multiple languages. They've done, and the research that was compiled that spoke in favor of this, they've done, I think, what we asked them to do. And this is a big thing that is mucking up people's lives, mine included, for that matter. But I wouldn't stand up and support it if I didn't think it was the right thing to do. And if we're to walk that back right now and say, no, we're not going to support this, I don't trust that the next big thing that comes along that follows the same process but generates uproar after the fact, we're going to be able to get a good outcome. Honestly, I don't trust that they'll bring stuff like this to us again. And in my head, the school year, the school calendars is honestly what I'm thinking about, to put a name to it. I don't think our school calendar serves our students well. I think it's one of those unspoken things, just like bell times were when I got elected 5 years ago. It was one of the first things I heard from people about. I think the calendar is the same thing. But I think if you're going to shorten summer break or lengthen fall breaks and things like that, you're going to muck up people's lives in a similar way. And there has to be a certain amount of trust that goes into this process if we're going to do those big things. And that's really what concerns me. So I am for this. I would vote against any measure to pull it back. And I do hope, first of all, that we're going to monitor it well, and we do have to have that conversation. I've had some conversation with Tom, and I feel like there's ideas about where that's going to go, but we as a board have not had that conversation yet. And that we're going to look for opportunities to improve it. And again, that's another thing that Tom and I talked about when I called them last week. And I think that there's reason to believe that we can fix some of the wrinkles that are going to be in there. But we don't have a perfect system right now. Kids are getting failed by the bell times right now, and we acted initially to fix that, and I think we need to stick to our guns on this.
Thank you, Mr. Barron.
Others? Kirsten?
Yeah, I want to start off on a slightly different tone. And first, I want to thank our staff and our faculty, and congratulations to all of our retirees. And I want to say to the students that I hope that you have a safe and fun summer. And as a teacher librarian, I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that you need to spend your summer reading and playing and learning, because if you don't, you'll slide backwards, and we don't want that to happen. And remember that in 79 days, you're going to return to classes. 79 days. As a teacher myself, that sounds way too short. I got plenty of stuff on my to-do list, and I know that when we think about moving a big system like Des Moines in one direction with 33,000 students and a number of families and administrators and faculty and staff and the community, that to reverse course on something as big as changing bell times seems to me to be not insurmountable, because I know that we have a staff that will do just about anything for our kids and for our families. But when I think about that timeline of 79 days, I just think that while my heart is in the place where I want to make sure that all of our kids are safe, and that's where I'm at, and that my heart is where I want to make sure that single mothers aren't disadvantaged and that our most vulnerable families can make it through, I want to focus the next 79 days on finding a really strong monitoring plan, so that when we hit the first day, we have a pulse on what's happening to our students, what's happening to our families as we move ahead with the bell time changes. I want to make sure that we have a process and procedure in place that if we start hitting hiccups, and we know it on September 30th, October 15th, November 1st, that we're ready to pull our community in and say, here's what we're seeing, how can we solve this together? That's where I would like to see us move in the next 79 days. As an educational professional, I support the idea that our superintendent, in conversation with his staff and our teachers, knows what bell times are best in their buildings. And I want to trust that we're going to move forward together to solve problems and to make sure that we are, if we are disadvantaging families, that we either have a plan to reverse it the following school year, or we have a plan to address it very quickly to help mitigate anything that's going on. But I also know that research shows that our older kids need the later start times, and I just want to remind you of that 79-day timeline that the school board talked about this for over a year before I joined in September, and that this decision was made several months ago, and that we are down to the wire with 79 days before our fall semester starts. So that's where I'm at.
Thank you.
I'll go ahead.
Yes.
So I've been thinking about some of these items as well, especially since last week, and I know I talked with Dr. Ahart as well, actually a bit about where I felt the delegation already was and where the question shouldn't be about our support. But I am happy that you called the question here and have given an opportunity for the board to weigh in. And I guess I would say too that I do support the delegation of the school start times to the superintendent and the forward movement of the plan that has been set into motion for some number of months now. Terry mentioned turning on a dime. It would be turning a 6-ton elephant on a dime. That 79-day timeline is significant. And I also appreciate and care about the human element, and my heart is where yours is as well, Kirsten, on making sure that we mitigate things as we see them. And I appreciate Deanna bringing up the idea of respecting the majority of vote, because that's probably where my conversations with Tom were, that this board, while on any number of topics, doesn't sit in unanimous support or dissension of anything. That on any given issue, once a decision is made, our individual board member support or dissension should be of no consequence to the superintendent, and that's because that process, it doesn't reflect the direction of the board as the body corporate. It's common knowledge that board decisions are reflective of majority vote or consent, and that those decisions need to be respected by all members of the board on any given topic as the only binding direction of the superintendent. In this case, Dr. Ahart has been delegated authority on the issue of school start times by the body corporate, and this needs to be recognized and respected by this body so that we can move forward, as Terry mentioned, and so that we can do so with integrity, and so that Dr. Ahart and his staff can focus their work on putting forth their best efforts in making this transition to these new start times in the least disruptive way possible and with the chance of the most success possible.
Great. Thank you. Ms. Ellsburn? Yes, Ms. Anderson.
It's my turn, right?
Yes.
So this has been something that obviously we left it up to the superintendent, or we handed him to make the decision. At the time we did that, I was supportive of the bell time changes. I'll support what the majority of the board wants, and I'll support what the superintendent plan is moving forward. I think that when we talked just last week, I've always been concerned with the safety of the little ones in the dark, waiting for the bus, walking the kids and the parents that don't have the means for childcare, et cetera. Those are things that I stated earlier. Those aren't anything new. I really feel that it's important that we set up some kind of, like Kirsten said, some kind of a monitoring plan where we can really solve any problems right away, if and not just work with. I know that our staff is going to be hardworking on this topic, but we really need to reach out to the community that's been coming here week after week, and they can also be our eyes and ears. And I feel like we can work together to support the bell time change. So I'm kind of like, I don't feel like, I feel a little mixed on it and worried, but then also know that it's good for our older students. So that's how I'm feeling. Thanks.
Great. Thank you for that. Again, this is not considered an official vote of the board, but rather an opportunity for us to articulate and express where we were on the issue out of respect for the individuals that came and asked to know where we stood on the issue, but more importantly, out of the utmost respect for the system and process that we've put in place as a board, and also the direction that we've already given to our superintendent and the work that his staff has done to actually do the things that we asked them to do. So 79 days and counting. I think I'm just going to put that on my little ticker, and every day wonder what new is happening as we get ready and prepared for the bell time changes. And it really is going to take the entire community to get behind this, to help us identify ways that we support everyone that's going to be impacted by this, both positively and negatively. I was sitting here, making some notes to myself. I work in one of the most impoverished neighborhoods in this community. And one of the things that my staff is working on as we speak is ways that we support adults and children as we move especially to the earlier elementary times. We're lucky that our elementary school is literally across the street, so we don't have to worry about catching buses, but we still do have to worry about kids getting up and getting across that street, sometimes in the wintertime in the dark. So we're working with parents to put together a parent brigade so parents can support one another. And I'm hoping that those sorts of efforts are things that the NAACP and other community organizations can get behind us on, helping to not only identify, but helping us to mobilize so that we can indeed be responsive, recognizing all of the issues and all of the challenges that everyone has raised relative to the start times. So I'm hoping that this can be a rallying cry and an opportunity for us as a community to come together to identify ways that we can support not only our school district, but each and every one of our students as we move into the new bell time. So that's a challenge that I'm going to put out to the community, and I'm hoping that people will step up and help us really identify ways to move forward. I have one more thing I want to mention before we close, but I'm going to ask the superintendent if he has any comments before we go to adjourn
I do.
and our work session.
I do, thank you. First, I just want to say, I recognized the teachers at our last meeting, but I really want to thank the central office staff that has really worked diligently and very hard over years now. Matt Smith is here, Bill Good is here. I'm not sure if we have anybody else here. Thomas Harper and Ann Sullivan both are in compromised health conditions right now or would be here. And Brenda Colby is taking care of some health issues with her husband, which is why she's not here. But we have been working very hard to be progressive, and not for the sake of being progressive, but for the sake of taking risks, calculated, intelligent risks on behalf of our students, on behalf of all of our students. And we have a pretty clear demonstrated record of success thus far, and you'll be seeing some more data at the next board meeting where we have the last round of monitoring reports regarding student achievement. We would not be proposing a change in bell times that we didn't think would overall advantage our teachers in serving our students more effectively. We do have concerns, but frankly, I have many concerns with our current bell schedule. And something that doesn't show up on paper and is very difficult for us to capture are the literally hundreds of students who are showing up well before our schools open right now, trying to get in the door, because that's the safest place for them to be, and it's the safest place for their parents to leave them in our care. There is not one perfect schedule. There just isn't. And there are schools around the country in urban areas that start as early as 7:15 and many that start at 7:30. What's very unusual is to have, in a district this size, to have schools at the same level starting at the same time, which provides lots of ease for coordinating after-school programming and daycare and teacher collaboration, and that's often not recognized, and we don't call that up very often, but it's something that the district has worked very hard to do. It provides us many advantages that oftentimes aren't noted because everybody's accustomed to it. So we will be monitoring this extremely closely. The last thing I want to do is to lessen the chances of success for any single one of our students or our families. I appreciate everyone pulling together to make this a success, as successful as we can, and we're going to continue to work to look for ways to iron out any wrinkles, as Rob put it, in the plan that we recognize moving forward. And we're already talking with DART, which is one of the major players in this equation, and how we can create more space for later start times moving forward. But I just think it's really important to emphasize that we have a team of about 5,000 staff members around the district who want nothing more than for every single one of our students to succeed. And we do feel like this is a step in the right direction to improve results, especially given that we do not have extra dollars to play with. So it's taking our two biggest resources, our people and our time, and arranging them in such a way that we best advantage everyone. So thank you for the robust discussion, board, and I'm looking forward to sharing positive results in the fall.
Thank you, Dr. Ahart. So before we adjourn, I want to thank all of my board colleagues for giving up your Memorial Day weekend to celebrate and to confer degrees on over 1,700 graduates from our comprehensive high schools. We have another graduation scheduled for later this summer. But we have at least a couple board members who had their own children graduate and also relatives graduate. So congratulations to each of you, but in particular, thanks to all of the parents who entrusted their children to Des Moines Public Schools to allow us to share in this journey with you, and wishing all of our graduates well as they move into the next phase of their lives. We think we've prepared them well. So with that, we will adjourn the meeting and get ready to move into our work session.